Hey everyone, I have my wife Erica here today. We are going to go over almost interview type style where I'm going to ask her questions about what she had to go through on the OCD recovery journey from the supporter standpoint, since there's not a lot of information on YouTube by any means for supporting anyone through any sort of mental health disorder. So this goes way beyond OCD, any type of anxiety-based disorders. It's everything. Body dysmorphic disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, PTSD, really anything actually, a cancer diagnosis, death of a loved one. The principles can be used for the same. Any type of situation where the person feels as if the person that they're working with or they're living with or that they're in an intimate relationship has lost all hope. And then they get to see that from an outside perspective, and they say to themselves, I don't know what to do because I don't know if something is beneficial. I don't know if something isn't beneficial, et cetera, et cetera. So always remember, info@ocdrecovery.com. We get back to you in a timely fashion. We do all sorts of coaching. It's not that we don't do it. We just have never done a direct one-to-one with just the sufferer's family members. And until we get to know the sufferer. Like, we usually don't have a family member call in and think we have Milo right here laying next to us, our dog. We'll show afterwards. Call in just that. Once we get to know the sufferer, then we usually might have private calls with the mother, the father, boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, et cetera, and even friends. So comment down below. Show this. If you're a sufferer, please show this to your friends and family members, whoever you're living with, boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, whoever it may be. So I'm going to jump right into it. What's the number one thing you've learned from 2019 when it first became problematic for me until today? What's probably the number one thing you've learned?
Probably that I can't do it for you. And once I realized that, it was almost freeing as a supporter. It was still very emotional and difficult to get through. But I didn't feel personally responsible for everything at that point. I habitually and previously was very much a fixer, so I wanted to fix everything. And I think just through this process, I learned that people's problems are their problems. They are not necessarily my problems. It was a problem for me because obviously you were suicidal and you didn't want to live anymore. So it did affect me, but I knew that I couldn't do the recovery process for you.
How long did it take you to make that realization?
I think I realized it decently early on because I had been going through my own therapy process when your dad died. And so that was part of the process of getting through that with you. So I know that I realized it early on, but I don't think that I was okay with practicing that for a very long time. I couldn't put a timeline on that, but not actually getting into the habit of trying to fix it for you took a while.
Awesome. I think that's really good for a lot of people to hear. The second question, I think this is important for both parties to hear, but also good from an outside perspective. From when I met Rob around the mental hospital time, November of 2019, how long did it take you to see that I was making visible progress?
I'm not sure. I think you started talking to Rob, what, November?
November 2019-ish.
You didn't really commit to anything until May. So
there goes 6 months. There goes 6 months right there. But even from there, how long did it take me from, let's say, May? So there's 6 months. From there, how long did it take me, did you see, to make really noticeable progress? Anger outbursts, mood, depression, still saying I didn't want to be here anymore. How long did it take, did you see me to more even out? With still having ups and downs.
Probably August or September of that year.
So almost about a year after I met Rob. Almost. The reason why I brought that up for Erica to explain is because when you come in and I coach you, a lot of people, it's understandable, why am I not better now? Why have I not seen the progress I want to make? And hearing that from another perspective is very important. Now, I suffered really badly way past that, but I had my life back. We had started the business together. We had done a bunch of stuff together, but I had suffered way beyond that September of 2021. I probably suffered pretty... 2020. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I suffered way beyond that until probably the middle of 2021. I mean, I remember when I did my first year recovery video, I was still stuck with sensory motor pretty severely during that video. I just was so happy that I was in such a better place. It seemed like I was recovered. It's always good to cover that because the realities of OCD just aren't really covered that well. The next question I want to ask you is, what did you find was the most important thing for yourself? Actually, that's not the question I want to ask. Can you tell them what happened to you when you didn't take care of yourself?
I mean, it was harder for me to just get through a day of like an outburst or something.
How much weight did you lose?
Oh, God. 15 pounds, I want to say.
15, 20. What did you weigh at the lowest? Would you say about
130, 135 or something?
I think you were 130, like 1 or 2 at the lowest.
Yeah.
And usually you weigh about 150, 152-ish probably. And so she had lost a bunch of weight because she was so stressed. And then what else did you notice that you were doing? Drinking more, definitely drinking wine more. And that's because I was completely disconnected, isolated, playing video games all the time. There was no connection between us whatsoever. And it was really hard in the relationship. I think it's important to cover this because OCD will stress, excuse my language, the living fuck out of any relationship you're in. Whether you're a son living with your parents, et cetera, it will stress. It will push many people to the limits. And you can get through that, but it is important to cover that because there's too much wishy-washiness on social media, and there's no covering of this. And it is important for Erica to explain, how bad it got for you, which was bad. I mean, it was not good. Can you explain to them how close you were to divorce, how close you were to leaving me, and explain why it got to that point?
I mean, I've said to you several times that I think I had a week left in me. So I didn't have much left, to be completely honest. I was looking up places to live back home and trying to figure out what I was going to do with the dog and, all this other stuff. So I was very, very close to it not working out. And then you got rid of the video games, and that was the first positive sign that I had truthfully seen at all, was you getting rid of the video games. And then that kind of, okay, let me see how this goes, if this is actually going to be permanent. And
that was a year after I became chronically stuck, because I became chronically stuck in June of 2019 with tinnitus. Mm-hmm. It started then, so we're talking a year. The reason why I keep reiterating these time frames, if you notice, we're not saying a week or a month or 2 months. We're saying year, multi-long month. And that might not be the story for most people, but 99.9% of the people I've ever coached, which is in the hundreds and hundreds. And if you include the webinars, probably the thousands, that I've never met one person that's made substantial changes in like a month. It's hard to see that because it's such a all-consuming disorder. The next question I want to ask you is, what have you learned from yourself supporting me throughout my journey that you could give as an advice to someone else? Spouse in particular. Let's say this is a spouse, husband or wife.
The most that you can do is try to hold them accountable. If they, like, for example, you saying, I need to get out of bed in the morning, asking me to help you with that, making sure that you get out of bed. And it didn't work every day. That was, again, the most you can do is try to hold him accountable. So on the days that he was sleeping in past when he needed to sleep in, I would go in and say, you need to get up, let's go, you're going to work. Didn't always work, but that's the most that you can really do as a supporter. is try to hold them accountable for the things that they need to be doing.
How important was tough love in the journey?
Very.
Can you explain that a little bit more? Because I think there's a lot of people out there that believe that tough love, I've even been told this by people, that tough love is an outdated methodology, which I think is completely incorrect. It's probably lacking more than anything.
Tough love is extremely necessary, especially in a situation like this. Again, you know, it's part of accountability, holding them accountable to the things that they need to do. It doesn't always feel good as the supporter to be tough on somebody. But when you're dealing with somebody who has OCD, their OCD is going to tell them what they think that they need, but it's not actually what they need. They're basing it off of their compulsions and their thoughts and
avoidance behaviors, everything.
Yeah,
exactly.
So allowing them to engage in that, you're not helping them, you're actually enabling them, and it can hinder their progress. Again, their progress is not necessarily on you. It really is up to them. But if you want to be helpful through the process, tough love is probably going to be a big part of it. Prior to this, you know, I didn't want to tell somebody what they needed. But in this situation, what they need and what they want are usually two very different things. And a lot of the time when they're saying what they need, it's actually just what OCD wants. So practicing the tough love was really important for that.
That's really good. I like that. The other thing I wanted to say, because I don't think this has probably never been recorded ever in the frame I'm going to put it in. What is the biggest mistakes I made when I started applying unconditional self-life and other acceptance to you? So basically what I'm saying is, if you're a husband or a wife, these are the things that the sufferer that you're married to or engaged to or boyfriend, girlfriend might do incorrectly to you, which can be frustrating. What would you say?
It was, for a while, you almost weaponized it, where you were weaponizing rational thinking, and it was almost to a point where you were using it to win arguments, which sometimes, like, yeah, you have to apply rational thinking to yourself as well. But to rationalize, like, oh, I could accept Nick doing whatever thing is bothering me. I could accept Nick for that. And that is true. I could do that. But I also don't necessarily want to accept these things. But you were kind of using it almost as a way to get out of the conversation, and not be responsible for something that I was telling you was bothering me.
You can use it. The thing is, the most important thing is, it's the same principles if you become religious. When you become religious, it's a faith. And that faith is your own faith. And when you use that, and I'm an atheist. When I believe when you die, nothing happens, which is a faith. So the thing is, when you take that faith and you put it upon other people, it becomes a problem. Stoicism and rational thinking can be considered a faithful type belief system in a way. So even though it seems, and it is in my opinion, the best way to live your life, to create decreased emotional disturbances, it's not for you to throw on other people. And that's the biggest mistake that people make.
And don't get me wrong, like it has helped me. Learning what you've learned and applying it to myself has definitely helped me. But I do think that there's a fine line being able to voice, hey, I don't like when you do this.
Mm-hmm.
And saying, oh, well, you could accept that. Again, that is true. But when you're dealing with a relationship, you do have to kind of take into consideration.
You use it as a you use it as a self-reassuring mechanism to get what you want. And that's not what rational thinking is. Rational thinking is for the individual. Same thing, like I said, if you're Christian, Catholic, you're Jewish, you practice whatever it is it may be. If you throw that on other people, you completely defeat the purpose of having a belief system. Because the belief system is for ourselves, no matter what you believe in. It's not for anyone else. And the more you try to shove down other people, the further you actually separate yourself, or you put yourself in an echo chamber and you surround yourself with people that only think like you, which can be a problem. It's good to surround yourself with people with all different types of money thinking, religious thinking, and everything like that. Eric and I have friends in all different spectrums of life. We don't always agree with everything they say, because acceptance doesn't mean agreement, but I no longer shove that down anyone's throat, which I did as an incorrect way to use unconditional self-love, other acceptance. So we're getting close to the end here. What would you say is the number one takeaway that you would say for a family member who feels like they are at the brink of they're about to lose it? What would you say?
That it's not their job to fix it. Again, I mean, I feel like I've said this a few times, but it's not your job to fix it. You can only do what you can do. And anything beyond that, like I get it because I've been there. It's very frustrating sometimes. But if you need to take some space, or like, however that looks, whether that's just going for a walk, going to the gym, maybe going to see family for a weekend. There was a weekend where we were still living in Florida and I left for the weekend. It also happened to be the weekend my grandma passed away, but I left for the weekend because I needed space. He was playing video games constantly. I felt like he wouldn't even notice if I wasn't there. So, depending on what you need, you don't be afraid to take that. Right, Milo? Yeah, don't be afraid to do what it is that you need to do in order to take care of yourself, whether that's going for a walk, taking a weekend to go somewhere else. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. This is a really good video to do. It's probably perfect, I think, because Milo's about to start barking at neighbors. Here he goes. Hey. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Again, if you're interested in our coaching and webinar services, please email us at info@ocdrecovery.com. We'll get back to you in a timely fashion. I'll take the camera off. I got a new phone today, so actually the camera looks much better. And there he is. Except I can't see it sideways now because I have that like protective thing. What are you doing? What are you doing? Who's that? Who's that? Is someone there? Who is it? His eyes are like... I got Daisy going. Who's that? That's what he does. And he barks at nothing. This is what we have to deal with. Have a good one, everyone.